My name is Thomas Kane. I'm 46 years old, sitting on a sagging porch in a small town in Nebraska, the kind of place where the wind carries the smell of hay and diesel. My hands are rough, scarred from years of gripping rifles and tools. And my eyes don't rest easy anymore. They haven't since 2009, since a village in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, where I saw something that carved itself into my soul. I was a Marine, a staff sergeant with the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, leading a squad through a war that chewed up men like us and spat out ghosts. We were sent to clear a village that intel said was already empty, abandoned by the Taliban. But what I found in the last room of the first house we entered, it's still with me every night, every quiet moment. This is the story of that day, of the blood in the village, and of what haunts me still. It was October, and Helmand was a furnace by day, freezing by night. Our company had been humping through the desert for weeks, chasing insurgents who melted into the hills like smoke. The village, called Karabad, was a cluster of mud brick houses and poppy fields tucked in a valley that felt like the edge of the world. Intel said the Taliban had used it as a staging point but pulled out days ago, spooked by airstrikes. Our job was simple: sweep the village, confirm it was clear, and set up a patrol base. Simple doesn't mean safe. In Afghanistan, nothing was safe. Every doorway could be a trap, every shadow an ambush. I'd lost 2 men to IEDs the month before, and the weight of their names Rodriguez and Callahan sat heavy on my chest. We rolled in at dawn, 3 platoons, about 100 Marines, Humvees kicking up dust that stung our eyes. My squad took point, moving down the main dirt track, rifles up, scanning rooftops and alleys. The village was quiet, to quiet the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. No dogs barking, no kids running, no old men smoking in doorways, just the crunch of our boots and the creak of gear. The houses were low, their walls cracked from years of sun and war, windows dark like empty sockets. I signaled for my squad to spread out, to fire teams covering each other as we approached the first house. My heart was steady, but my gut twisted. Something was wrong. You feel it in war, that itch you can't scratch. I was with First Team, Corporal Ellis, Lance Corporal Tate, and Private Nguyen. Ellis was a big guy, Texas-born, always chewing gum like it was his last meal. Tate was quiet, a kid from Oregon who wrote letters to his mom every night. Nguyen was new, barely 20, all nerves and quick reflexes. We stacked on the door, a heavy wooden slab with a rusted hinge. I nodded to Ellis, who kicked it in, the wood splintering as it slammed inward. We moved fast, flowing into the first room, rifles sweeping corners. Clear, just dirt floors, a straw mat, and a broken chair. The air was thick, stale, with a faint metallic tang I couldn't place. We moved to the next room, a kitchen, if you could call it that, a clay oven, some chipped bowls, a sack of rice spilled across the floor. Clear, my radio crackled. Second Team, led by Sergeant Brody, reporting the same from the house across the street. Empty, abandoned, but that tang in the air was stronger now, sharp, like copper. I knew that smell. Blood, not fresh, but recent enough to linger. I raised a fist, halting my team. Ellis caught my eye. His gum-chewing paused, his face tight. He smelled it too. Tate's breathing was loud, too loud, and I shot him a look to steady up. Nguyen gripped his rifle like it was a lifeline. The house had one more room, at the back, behind a tattered curtain that swayed slightly, though there was no breeze. I didn't want to go in there. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to call for backup, to blow the whole place to hell. But I was the squad leader. My men were watching, waiting for me to move. I pushed the curtain aside with the barrel of my M16 and stepped through, my team tight behind me. The room was small, maybe 10 by 10, with a single window boarded shut. The light was dim, filtering through cracks, casting shadows that moved like ghosts. And there, in the center of the room, was the source of the smell. Blood, pools of it, dark and sticky, soaking into the dirt floor. It wasn't fresh, maybe a day old, maybe two, but it was everywhere, streaked across the walls, splatter on the ceiling. A wooden table sat in the middle, its surface crusted with dried gore. On the floor beside it, a pile of clothes, or what I thought were clothes until I realized they were stained with the same dark red. My stomach churned, till I kept my face blank. From my men, Ellis swore under his breath a low, "Jesus Christ." Tate gagged, turning away, his rifle dipping. Nguyen just stared, his eyes wide, unblinking. I stepped closer, my boots sticking to the floor, and saw something else. A knife, crude, its blade caked with blood, lying near the table, and beside it, a small object glinting in the half-light. A ring, silver, simple, the kind a woman might wear. My mind raced, trying to piece it together. This wasn't a firefight. This wasn't combat. This was something else, something deliberate, something evil. I'd seen blood before, hell. I'd spilled it, but this was different. This was a slaughter. Staff Sergeant Ellis said, his voice low, urgent. He was pointing to the corner where the shadows were thickest. I followed his gaze and saw a trapdoor flush with the floor, its edges smeared with the same dark stains. My heart kicked into overdrive. Whatever happened here, whatever left this room like a butcher's shop, it might still be down there. I wanted to burn the house down, walk away, pretend we'd never seen it. But we had a job, clear the village, no exceptions. I nodded to Alice, who moved to the trapdoor, his rifle trained on it. Tate and Nguyen fell in, their faces pale but focused. I grabbed the ring, slipping it into my pocket without knowing why, and took position beside Ellis. The trapdoor was heavy, wood reinforced with metal, and it creaked as we pried it open. A wave of damp, sour air hit us, carrying the same coppery stench, only stronger. Below was darkness, a narrow staircase descending into nothing. I clicked on my rifle's flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom, revealing rough stone walls and more blood, streaked like fingerprints. "On me," I said, my voice steady, though I didn't feel it. I started down, one step at a time, my men behind me. The air grew colder, thicker, the smell so intense it coated my throat. My flashlight swept the space below a cellar, maybe 15 feet square, with a low ceiling, and then the beam caught something, and I stopped dead. Bodies, 3 of them, sprawled across the floor, their limbs twisted, their clothes torn. 2 men, 1 woman, their faces gray, their eyes opened, staring at nothing. The woman's hand was outstretched, as if reaching for something, and I saw the mark on her finger where a ring should have been. My hand went to my pocket, to the silver band I'd found, and I felt sick. The men were locals, their clothes traditional, their beards matted with blood. The woman was younger, maybe 20, her headscarf stained red. Their throats were cut, deep and precise, the kind of wounds that don't leave room for screams. Ellis was beside me now, his flashlight joining mine, illuminating the horror. "What the fuck?" he whispered. Not a question, just raw shock. Tate was frozen on the stairs, his breathing ragged. Nguyen stepped forward to calm, like he was detaching, and I grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "Don't," I said. "We didn't touch them. We didn't need to. They were gone, and whatever had done this wasn't humanity in the way I understood it." I swept my light across the cellar, looking for answers, for anything. There were crates in the corner, wooden, unmarked, and a pile of blankets soaked with blood. No weapons, no signs of a fight, just death, cold and final. I radioed Brody, my voice tight but controlled. "Second team, this is Kane. We've got casualties in the first house. Cellar, 3 bodies, no hostiles. Need you to confirm status on your end." Brody's voice crackled back, tense. "Roger, we're clear so far. No bodies, no blood. You want us to link up?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted them here, wanted the whole platoon to see this, to share the weight. But we had a job. "Negative," I said. "Keep clearing." "Watch your 6." I clicked off, my hand shaking. I didn't trust my own orders, but I gave them anyway. We climbed back up, the cellars chill clinging to us. The room above felt different now, the bloodstains louder, the shadows deeper. I looked at my men, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. "We move on," I said. "Next house. Stay sharp." They nodded. But I could see with fear, the questions, the same dread eating at me. What had happened here? Was it the Taliban, locals settling scores, or something worse, something we couldn't name? I didn't know. And that was the worst part. I led them out of the house, back into the sunlight, but the warmth didn't touch me. The village felt alive now, watching us, waiting. We crossed the street, moving to the next house, our rifles up, our steps careful. The silence was heavier, the air thick with the promise of more horrors. I glanced back at the first house, its doorway dark, and felt a pull, like it wasn't done with us. My hand brushed the ring in my pocket, and I wondered who she'd been, what she'd seen before the knife. We stacked on the next door, Alice ready to kick it in, when a sound stopped us cold a low, guttural moan coming from inside. It wasn't human, not quite, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I raised my fist, signaling hold, and listened, my heart pounding as the moan came again. Closer now, just beyond the door. The moan came again, low and raw, like something caught between pain and rage. It was close, too close, just on the other side of the door we were stacked against. My fist was still raised, freezing my team in place, every nerve in my body screaming to back off. The village of Karabad was no longer just a ghost town. It was a trap, and we were deep in it. The air felt heavier, the sunlight dimmer, like the world was closing in. Alice looked at me, his eyes wide, his gum forgotten, his rifle tight against his shoulder. Tate was breathing too fast, his hands trembling on his weapon. Nguyen was still, his face blank, but I could see the tension in his jaw. I lowered my fist, slow, and nodded to Alice. We had to go in. We had no choice. Alice kicked the door, the wood splintering inward, and we flowed through, fast and tight, into a narrow room lit by slants of light through a cracked window. The moan stopped, replaced by a sudden, suffocating silence. My flashlight swept the space-dirt floor, a woven rug, a clay jug in the corner. Clear, but the air was wrong, thick with that same coppery stench from the first house, mixed with something sour, like rot. My stomach twisted, but I kept moving, leading my team toward the next room, a low archway covered by a beaded curtain. The beads clicked as I pushed through, my rifle up, my heart slamming against my ribs. The second room was larger, a living space with cushions scattered on the floor and a low table holding a half-burned candle. The moan came again, sharper now, from the far corner where shadows pooled like ink. I swung my flashlight, and there it was, a man, or what was left of him, slumped against the wall. His clothes were torn, his face a mask of blood, one eye gone, the other staring blindly. His chest heaved, a wet, rattling sound, and I realized he was the source of the moan. He was alive, barely, his fingers twitching, clawing at the dirt. "Nguyen, check him," I said, my voice low, keeping my rifle trained on the man. Nguyen moved forward, cautious, his med kit already out. Ellis and Tate covered the room, their flashlights darting across the walls, catching more blood streaks. Splashes, a handprint smeared near the door. Nguyen knelt beside the man, his hands steady despite the horror. "He's bad," Nguyen said, not looking up. "Multiple wounds. Looks like knife cuts. Deep. He's not gonna make it." The man's lips moved. A gurgle. Maybe words, but nothing I could understand. His good eye locked on me, and for a moment I felt like he was pleading, not for help, but for something else in words, maybe, or mercy. I stepped closer, my boots scuffing the dirt, and saw the wounds Nguyen meant. His chest was a mess, slashed open, ribs glinting through the blood. His arms were cut, too, defensive wounds, like he'd tried to fight back. This wasn't a quick kill, not like the bodies in the first house. This was slow, deliberate, someone taking their time. My mind flashed to the cellar, to the woman with the missing ring, and I felt the silver band in my pocket like it was burning. "Ask him what happened," I said to Nguyen, who knew enough Pashto to get by. Nguyen leaned in, speaking softly, but the man just moaned again, his head lolling to the side. Before Nguyen could try again, a crash came from outside, loud and sharp, like wood breaking. Ellis spun toward the door, his rifle up. "What the hell was that?" he hissed. I motioned for Tate to cover the archway and move to the window, peering through the cracks. The street was empty, the other houses silent, but dust was rising from the direction of Brody's position. My radio crackled before I could call. "Kane, this is Brody. We've got movement. East side, near the mosque. Shadows, maybe 2 or 3. You seeing anything?" His voice was tight, the kind of tight that means trouble. "Negative," I replied, keeping my eyes on the street. "We've got a survivor here. Critical. Possible hostile activity in the house. Hold position. We're coming to you." I clicked off, my mind racing. The village wasn't empty. Whatever had done this killed those people. Carved up, this man was still here, and we were walking blind. I turned back to Nguyen. "Can we move him?" Nguyen shook his head, his hands red with the man's blood. "He's got minutes. Maybe. Moving him'll kill him faster," I cursed under my breath. Leaving him felt wrong, but staying was suicide. "Mark his position," I said. "We'll send a corpsman back." The man grabbed my arm, his grip weak but desperate, his nails digging into my skin. His lips moved again, and this time I caught a word, faint in Pashto. "Shaitan." Devil. His eye was wild, not with pain, but fear, the kind that goes deeper than flesh. I pulled free, my skin crawling, and stood. "We're moving," I said to my team. "Brody's got movement. Stay tight, eyes open. Ellis nodded, spitting his gum onto the floor. Tate looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. Nguyen packed his kit, his face still blank, like he was locking it all away. We left the man, his moans fading as we moved back through the house, out into the street. The sun was higher now, the heat pressing down, but it didn't touch the chill inside me. The village felt alive, the silence mocking us, every doorway a threat. We moved fast, linking up with Brody's team near the mosque, a squat building with a cracked minaret. Brody was waiting, his face grim, his men fanned out in a defensive perimeter. "You see what we saw?" he asked, nodding toward the house we'd just left. I shook my head. "Worse. Survivor. Barely. Blood everywhere." "You." Brody pointed to a nearby house, its door hanging off its hinges. "Found tracks in there. Fresh. Someone's been moving, and not long ago. Could be civvies, could be Taliban. Either way, we're not alone." I followed his gaze, my hand tightening on my rifle. The tracks were clear in the dust, leading toward the mosque. My eyes flicked to the minaret, its shadow long across the street, and I felt that itch again, the one that says you're being watched. "Regroup and push," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We clear the mosque, then the rest of the village. No splitting up." Brody nodded, relaying the order to his men. My squad fell in, Tellis on my left, Tate and Nguyen on my right. We moved toward the mosque, the tracks growing clearer, deeper, like whoever made them was in a hurry. The moan from the house echoed in my head, that word chattering like a warning. The mosque's door was ajar, the darkness inside swallowing the light. I signaled for entry, my team stacking behind me, and pushed through, my flashlight cutting through the gloom. The air inside was cool, damp, the smell of dust and decay hitting us hard. The main prayer room was empty, just rows of faded carpets and a wooden pulpit. But the tracks led to a side door, narrow, leading down. Another cellar, or maybe a tunnel. My gut screamed to stop, to call for backup, but we were in too deep. I glanced at Ellis, who gave a tight nod, and opened the door. The stairs were stone-worn smooth, descending into blackness. The smell was stronger here, blood and rot and something worse, something alive. I started down, my men behind me, the darkness closing in like a fist. The stairs ended in a tunnel, low and cramped, the walls rough-hewn, streaked with moisture. My flashlight caught glints of metal tools, maybe, or weapon scatter, on the floor. The tracks were fresh, smeared with blood, leading deeper. We moved slow, crouched, the ceiling brushing our helmets. The air was thick, hard to breathe, and every step felt like walking into a grave. Then we heard ITA's sound, not a moan this time, but a voice, low and guttural, chanting something I couldn't understand. It was close, just ahead, around a bend in the tunnel. My heart pounded, my finger hovering over the trigger. I signaled for silence and crept forward, the chanting growing louder, the words twisting in my head like a curse. I rounded the bend, and the tunnel opened into a chamber, maybe 20 feet across, lit by a single oil lamp flickering on a crate. The walls were covered in markings, symbols I didn't recognize, drawn in what looked like blood. In the center, a man knelt, his back to us, his voice rising and falling in that eerie chant. He was shirtless, his skin slick with sweat, a knife in his hand, its blade dark with blood. Around him, more badies 5, maybe 6, piled like discarded rags, their throats cut, their eyes open. The smell was overwhelming, a physical thing choking me. I raised my rifle, my voice sharp. Hands up now. The man stopped chanting, but didn't turn. His shoulders tensed, his head tilting slightly, like he was listening. Ellis moved beside me, his rifle trained, while Tate and Nguyen covered the tunnel behind us. I said, "Hands up," I shouted, stepping closer, my flashlight steady on his back. He stood slow, deliberate, the knife still in his hand. When he turned, I saw his face gaunt, bearded, his eyes black, not with color, but with something deeper, something wrong. He smiled, a thin, crooked thing, and spoke, his voice soft, almost gentle. "You shouldn't be here." Before I could react, he lunged, the knife flashing in the lamplight. I fired 2 rounds, center mass, and he dropped, the knife clattering to the floor. The echo of the shots rang in my ears, the air thick with cordite. Ellis was shouting, checking the bodies. But I couldn't move, couldn't look away from the man's face, his smile still there, even in death. Nguyen was at my side, his voice urgent. "Staff Sergeant, we've got more tracks." Leading out, I followed his flashlight, saw the prints, fresh and bloody, disappearing into another tunnel. The chamber wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The man's body lay crumpled at my feet, his blood pooling with the rest, his smile frozen like a taunt. The chamber felt smaller now, the walls pressing in, the oil lamps flicker casting shadows, danced like demons. My ears rang from the shots, my hands steady, but my heart racing. The weight of what I'd just done sinking in. I'd killed before Taliban fighters, insurgents, men with guns who wanted me dead, but this felt different. His eyes, his voice, that word from the dying man in the house Shaitan. It wasn't just a kill. It was a warning. Nguyen's flashlight swept the tunnel ahead, the fresh tracks glinting wet in the beam. Whoever else was here, they'd heard the shots. They knew we were coming. "Ellis, secure the chamber," I said, my voice hoarse, forcing myself to focus. "Tate, Nguyen, on me. We follow the tracks." Ellis nodded, already checking the bodies, his face pale but set. Tate hesitated, his eyes darting to the dead man, but a sharp look from me got him moving. Nguyen was already at the tunnel's mouth, his rifle up, his calm unnerving, like he'd seen worse than this. Maybe he had. We didn't talk about our pasts. Not out here. We just survived. The tunnel was narrower, the ceiling lower, forcing us to crouch, our gear scraping the walls. The air was damp, sour, the smell of blood and rot so thick it coated my tongue. The tracks were clear, 2 sets, maybe 3, smeared with blood, moving fast. My flashlight caught more symbols on the walls, jagged and uneven, like they'd been carved in a hurry. I didn't know what they meant, but they felt wrong, like a language that shouldn't exist. The chanting was gone, replaced by a low hum. Not a sound, but a feeling vibrating in my chest. My skin crawled, but I kept moving. 1 step at a time, my men behind me. The tunnel curved, then widened, opening into another chamber larger than the first, the ceiling high enough to stand. My flashlight swept the space, and I froze. Crates lined the walls, dozens of them, wooden and unmarked, stacked like a fortress. In the center, a pit, maybe 10 feet across, its edges crusted with dried blood. The smell was worse here, not just blood, but decay, like something had been left to rot for weeks. The tracks led to the pit, then stopped, like whoever made them had vanished. I signaled for Tate and Nguyen to fan out, cover the room. While I approached the pit, my rifle trained on its edge, I leaned over, my flashlight cutting through the darkness below, and my breath caught. Bodies, dozens of them piled like garbage, limbs daggled, faces gray, eyes staring up at me. Men, women, even children, their throats cut, their clothes soaked red. The pit was deep, maybe 15 feet, and the bottom was a sea of blood, thick and black, reflecting my light like oil. I stumbled back, my boot catching on the edge, and Tate grabbed my arm, his voice shaky. "Staff Sergeant, what the hell is this?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mind was screaming, trying to make sense of it, but there was no sense to be made. Nguyen was at the crates, prying one open with his knife, his movements quick, precise. "Kane," he called, his voice low. I tore my eyes from the pit and joined him, Tate covering us. Inside the crate were weapon sacks, RPGs, stacks of ammo, but also something else. Photographs, grainy, black and white, pinned to the crate's lid. Faces, mostly locals, some with X's drawn over them in red ink. I recognized one woman from the first house's cellar, her headscarf unmistakable. My hand went to the ring in my pocket, and I felt it again, that burn, like it was alive. "Ritual," Nguyen said, his voice flat, like he was stating a fact. I looked at him, his face unreadable in the flashlight's glow. "What?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. He nodded at the pit, the symbols, the photos. "This isn't Taliban, not normal. It's something else. Sacrifice, maybe. Or worse." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was crazy, but the pit was right there, the bodies, the blood. This wasn't war. This was madness. A sound snapped me back, a scrape, faint but close, from the far side of the chamber. I swung my rifle, my flashlight catching a flicker of movement behind a crate. "Show yourself," I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls. Nothing, just the hum, louder now, in my bones. Tate was sweating, his rifle shaking, but Nguyen was calm, his eyes scanning the shadows. I moved toward the crate, slow, my boot silent on the dirt. Another scrape, then a low laugh, soft and wrong, like it came from inside my head. I rounded the crate, and there he was, a boy, maybe 12, his clothes ragged, his face smeared with blood. He was holding a knife, its blade dark, and his eyes were like the man's in the first chamber, black, empty, smiling. I lowered my rifle, just a fraction, my voice soft. "Hey, kid, put the knife down. We're not gonna hurt you." He didn't move, just stared, his smile widening. Then he spoke, his voice too deep, too old for his body. "You can't stop it," he said, in perfect English, and my blood went cold. Before I could react, he darted forward, the knife flashing. Nguyen tackled him, pinning him to the ground, the knife skittering away. The boy thrashed, hissing, his strength unnatural, like he was possessed. Tate was shouting, backing up, his rifle trained on the kid. "Zip tie him," I said, my voice shaking now. Nguyen pulled ties from his kit, binding the boy's wrists and ankles. But the kid didn't stop, his body twisting, his eyes locked on mine. "Shaitan sees you," he spat, and I felt it. That word again, like a curse sinking into me. I grabbed Nguyen, pulling him back, and looked at Tate. "Call Brody. We need the platoon now." Tate fumbled for his radio, his hands clumsy, but before he could speak, the ground shook, a low rumble that made the crates rattle. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the hum became a roar, loud enough to drown out everything. I grabbed the boy, hauling him up, his body limp now, his eyes still smiling. "Move," I shouted, pushing Tate and Nguyen toward the tunnel. The rumble grew, the walls trembling, like the earth itself was angry. We ran, the boy slung over my shoulder, his weight light but heavy with something I couldn't name. The tunnel seemed longer, the darkness thicker, the symbols glowing in my flashlight's beam. We burst into the first chamber, where Ellis was waiting, his face ashen. "What the fuck's happening?" he yelled, his rifle up. "The body's still there, untouched." "Collapse," I said, not sure if I meant the tunnel or something else. "Get to the surface." We scrambled up the stairs, the mosque's prayer room a blur, and spilled into the street. The village was shaking now, dust rising, houses groaning like they were alive. Brody's team was there, their faces pale, their rifles sweeping the street. "Kane, what's going on?" Brody shouted, grabbing my arm. I set the boy down, his body still, his eyes closed now, like he was sleeping. "We found something," I said, my voice breaking. "Bodies, weapons, this kid. It's not Taliban. It's worse." Before Brody could respond, a scream cut through the air, high and desperate, from the far end of the village. My head snapped toward it, my rifle up. The platoon froze, every eye on the street, where shadows were moving now, fast, too fast. "Form up," I shouted, my voice raw. The boy's eyes opened, his smile back, and he whispered, "It's here." The ground shook again, harder, and the shadows became figuresmen, women, their faces blank, their hands holding knives, moving toward us like a tide. My heart stopped, but my training kicked in. I raised my rifle, my men falling in, and fired, the sound swallowed by the roar of the village coming alive. The fight was chaos, a blur of muzzle flashes and screams. The figures kept coming, their eyes empty, their movements jerky, like puppets. We held the line, Brody's team on our flank, but there were too many, and the ground wouldn't stop shaking. I saw Tate go down, a knife in his chest, his scream cut short. Nguyen was beside me, firing, his face a mask of rage. Ellis was shouting, dragging the boy back, the kid laughing now, a sound that cut through the gunfire. I fired until my magazine was empty, reloaded, fired again, but they kept coming, and the village was collapsing, houses crumbling, the mosque's minaret cracking like a bone. We fell back, dragging our wounded, the boy still with us, his laughter constant now, like a song. The street was a graveyard, bodies everywhere, ours and theirs, the dust so thick I could barely see. Brody was shouting for air support, but the radio was static, useless. I grabbed Nguyen, his arm slick with blood, and pushed him toward a low wall, the only cover left. "Hold here," I yelled, turning to Ellis, who was tying the boy to a post, his face grim. The kid's eyes met mine, and he spoke again, his voice clear despite the chaos. "You'll see," he said. "In the dark, you'll see." The ground split, a crack running through the street, swallowing bodies, dust, everything. I grabbed Ellis, pulling him back, and we ran, Nguyen behind us, the boys' laughter fading as the village tore itself apart. We reached the Humvees, the platoon piling in, our wounded bleeding across the seats. I looked back one last time and saw the mosque collapse, the minaret falling like a judgment. The bow was gone, the post empty, the village a ruin. We drove, the desert swallowing us, the silence heavier than the gunfire. We made it to base, battered, half our men gone. Tate's face burned into my mind. The report I wrote was clean enemy engagement, village collapse, heavy casualties. I didn't mention the pit, the symbols, the boy. I couldn't. They'd call me crazy, lock me up. But Nguyen knew, Ellis knew. We didn't talk about it, but it was there, in our eyes, every time we looked at each other. I left the Marines 2 years later, my contract up, my soul spat. I came back to Nebraska, bought this house, tried to live, but the ring is still in my drawer, the woman's face in my dreams, the boy's voice in my head. I don't sleep much. When I do, I'm back in Carabad, in that pit, the bodies staring up, the boy smiling. I see Tate, his blood on my hands, and I hear the word Chayton. I don't know what we found, what we fought, but it wasn't human. Not entirely. It's still out there, in the dark, waiting. And sometimes, when the wind is quiet and the night is deep, I hear it, that laughter, calling me back. I keep my rifle by the bed, loaded just in case, not for them but for me, because if it comes I won't let it take me alive.